It's time now for Scoop, our weekly conversation on international media. This is our final show of the year, and we're taking a look back at 2025. Well, I asked three colleagues to each choose just two, maybe three works of journalism from the whole year that resonated with them. There are many crucial pieces that we will not be looking at today, from Donald Trump's assault on the press to Sudan's civil war. Now, joining me from France 24's flagship debate program is François Picard. Hello to you.
Good to see you.
François. Also have a senior reporter, Catherine Norris-Trent, alongside him. And across the table is Leela Jacinto, senior reporter and senior editor. We're going to begin with Ellen Lam-Trong's documentary, Inside Gaza. Take a look at this clip.
مكتب AFP بغزة يعني هو بالفعل عائلة بالنسبة إلي أصبح. أحياناً نتقاتل في وقت الشغل والضغط، نتقاتل زملاء، أصدقاء، عائلة.
Catherine, this was your choice. What struck you when you first watched this?
Oh, there's been so much powerful, horrendous stuff coming out of Gaza. This documentary really hit through. It follows the stories of the AP journalists stuck inside Gaza as they are under fire, as they are losing family members, as they're starving and struggling to work, and they're trying to cover this, this death that's falling down from the sky, people being killed under these Israeli bombs for months and months and months. And it shows, it really helps humanize it and personalize it. And you really relate to them. And I just would really recommend people to watch this.
Right. And Francois, over 220, by some counts, 300 journalists killed by Israeli attacks since this war began. A question about sometimes when we hear that foreign journalists aren't being allowed in Gaza, does that undermine the work that the Palestinian journalists are doing?
Yes, it does, because it puts them even more in danger. We know they're being tracked. And also, it makes it more difficult to see the kind of reporting that Catherine is alluding to, human reporting. Instead, we're just fed the same old agency pictures, which show death and destruction, which are rather impersonal.
That's right. I want to look at the next element in this list. It's two pieces chosen by Leela. One of them is from the Empire podcast, which says, to understand modern Gaza, you must first learn about ancient Gaza. Take a listen.
And this is a part of the world that dominates our front pages, yet we do not know this early history, and we should know it. It's absolutely crucial to understand current events, to know what preceded it in detail, going really into the minutiae. This is the first time that people have attempted to put into broadcast form a deep dive into the history of Gaza.
And that's such an interesting project, Leela. What did you glean from listening?
History. I mean, for me, knowing your history is what separates a hack from a good journalist, and especially with a conflict now that dates back, the current conflict, a century. And this is a very fair, balanced, deep dive into history. And it's so critical because in this particular conflict, it divides the world. And it divides also the visions of history. There is what the Global South has long been said, a Eurocentric vision of history. And a lot of people come at this conflict from different historic milestones. And this really goes back from the start, from the time of the Greeks, and you come all the way here. And of course, this is critical in trying to solve this conflict.
Yeah, and that long format really does something that we can't do here on TV, also perhaps in the newspapers. Your other piece for the subject, it comes from the Intelligencer website on life in Gaza under Israel's all-encompassing surveillance regime. Leela, the most haunting line for me from this report was, quote, "It is the culmination of decades of monitored occupation, a totalitarian nightmare spliced with genocidal terror, a system that is already evolving and growing for whatever comes next."
I mean, this piece really caught me because it is so gripping. First and foremost, it is written by a journalist in Gaza. He has since managed to come out, and I literally broke out into a cold sweat because it's a first-person account, and you enter the terror of being surveilled. And what we are seeing right now in Gaza, in addition to the mass killing, is, as this journalist put it, Palestinians in Gaza are living in a matrix of constant surveillance. You not only have constantly drones overhead, you have quadcopters entering into rooms, and it is terrorizing the psyche of Gazans. And what we are really seeing, which we haven't really put our finger on, is a mass psychological scaring of a populace. I could not recommend this more. And of course, a very important issue that we are dealing with now with AI-generated hit lists. This is from the Israeli media on how technology is terrorizing populaces now.
Catherine, you've covered this conflict a number of times.
From a distance.
Exactly, from a distance.
Frustratingly.
Are Israelis aware of all of this high tech that's being used in Gaza?
No, I'm sure they're not aware of the half of it. It's a very tech-savvy society, lots of high-tech companies. We know they've been at the leading edge of facial recognition technology, things like that. They are using this militarily, and yet they're using it on the people of Gaza. And the people of Gaza, of course, have no choice because they can't get in or out as things stand, neither can the international press. So it's absolutely chilling. And it's something I think in various societies we should be quite concerned about how our images are being used, how surveillance is. But in this context, it's even more chilling.
Technology also plays a role in this next story. It's widely recognized as the world's first drone war, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. A lot of great reporting on Ukraine recently, from the Trump administration's first draft on its proposed peace plan to the corruption scandal that rocked Vladimir Zelensky's government. Francois, you were fascinated by a piece from our correspondent Gulliver Cragg about the terrestrial drones. Let's take a look at that report real quick.
Loading up an unmanned ground vehicle, or land drone, to take food and ammunition to an infantry position further ahead. With a top speed of only 10 kilometers an hour and along muddy paths, it's a journey that can take more than 3 hours. The danger from above is the very reason that the land drones, which can carry far heavier loads than even the biggest airborne ones, are needed.
Francois, what did you like most about that piece?
Well, first of all, it hits home just how dangerous it is at the front. If you can't even have human beings bring you supplies, but instead unmanned vehicles, that's one aspect of it. Secondly, and this relates to what you just described inside of the Gaza Strip, this sort of gamification of conflict that we're seeing, that it's now all about how you use a joystick, and you forget there are actual human beings on the other side. In that very same piece, one soldier hesitant about getting evacuated by one of those land drones.
Right.
And the third and final thing, which is important to mention, is our correspondent, Gulliver Cragg. He's been out there.
Yeah.
He's been out there going everywhere, the four
Sterling
corners
job.
of Ukraine. And his reporting is very balanced because he gets an earful from all sides whenever he's out there.
That's right. Catherine, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to come in. I've been, not recently as Gulliver, but I've been in these near frontline positions in Ukraine, and just the saturation of the drones. Okay, we all talk about drones the whole time in this conflict. But since I started going there when it was right on the full-scale invasion in 2022 to now, the quantity of drones, the sheer quantity is huge. I mean, the skies near the front lines are completely saturated. So it's really hard, actually, to get embedded with these Ukrainian army units because they're terrified about the journeys in and out to these positions because you are being watched at all times and you are a target at all times, especially more so if you're press and the army as well. That's a bonus prize for the Russian drone pilot. So the Ukrainians have innovated a lot with their drone technology. They're still constantly innovating. And the Russians are seeing or picking up bits of those drones and then mass producing them in huge factories on their side. And now it's just incredibly dangerous pretty much anywhere you go.
Yeah, Leela, your take.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And with drone technology, how low-key it is and how affordable it is. So we have so many players getting into this, Iran, Turkey. It's changing the game, and we're back to how technology is conducting war now.
And they do it in basements, with 3D printers.
Right.
They're printing these things out. Sometimes they're costing like $1,000 for these pieces of war machinery.
It's amazing. Technology also relevant probably in this next subject. It's commonly referred to as Havana syndrome, mysterious health ailments impacting spies, soldiers, and diplomats around the world, but first reported at the U.S. Embassy in Havana. Take a look.
America's best men and women in national security are being targeted and neutralized in a global campaign.
It just felt like I was in like a pressure cooker.
And the pressure's just slowly like crushing your head.
AHIs have been reported in every continent. It's time to hit back in the shadows because that's the only way to get our adversaries to stop.
Catherine, this was the piece you chose. It's a multi-part
It's a four-part documentary series, and I really recommend everyone to watch it. It's called The Threat Against America. It's on Canal+. And it is really revealing. I learned things about Havana syndrome that I had never heard of before, even though it's been rumbling on since about 2016. There are now more than 1,000 reported cases. Someone was targeted with it, says they were targeted with it just outside the White House in a dozen different countries across the world. And this is a really superbly produced documentary, as you can see there, for Canal+. I know there's a 60 Minutes on it as well, but actually I think this one is better. Sorry to our friends at 60 Minutes. It actually won a big journalism prize in France this year, the Prix Albert Londres, and I just really recommend it to everyone.
I'm watching. I mean, it's got spies. It's got this mysterious. We were hearing these reports, and we couldn't patch it all together. They were so weird.
This really helps you put it all together.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's move on to a fashion faux pas. We're looking at you, Francois. This is a story you wanted to talk about. Curveball coming in. In November, the online retailer Shein opened its first physical store in the world here in Paris. Long queues to get in. Riot police were deployed. French reporting mainly focusing on Shein's working conditions, environmental impact of fast fashion. It's selling counterfeit luxury goods. That's an accusation on its platform. But then also the political lobbying, Francois, which I find most fascinating in this story.
Yeah, this was the investigative unit of our public broadcaster Radio France, which put together how there's a whole host of big names that have been recruited, former government ministers, including a former right-hand man of France's president, the former interior minister, Christophe Castaner, to do the lobbying. Now, this is nothing new. Politicians going into private life, Nick Clegg working for Facebook and the such. But this is quite a story because it sort of encapsulates everything that's wrong right now with globalization. It's not so much the fact that it's a Chinese brand. It's the fact that we're accelerating our own destruction. The French buy 5 times more clothes today than they did 20 years ago. Do you need all this stuff? And do you need people lobbying for it? They pay influencers to say how great they are. Mm-hmm. By the way, among those taking money, the current head of the FBI, he's got more than $5 million in stock in the parent company of Shein. Wow. Conflicts of interest, you got to wonder.
I have to press on. I want to get to all the stories we have on our list. We're going to rush through these last two. Leela, you chose a piece from Scroll about the death of an 80-year-old man, bedridden, immobile, who died while trying to cross the border from India to Pakistan. Tell us about this piece.
So this is a story of a man, and it's a story about a subcontinent divided, and how that affects the lives of ordinary people. So basically, this man was told to evacuate 4 days after there was a terror attack in Kashmir, in Indian-administered Kashmir, that was blamed on Pakistan, and how, this enmity between these two countries, and this was before the two countries went into war, which we saw this year, and how this extremely sick man caught in the bureaucracy of nationalities and passports gets stuck and ultimately is being evacuated to Pakistan. He's a Kashmiri and he dies at the border because he's paralyzed and the cruelty of the bureaucracy.
A tragic story that. Catherine, we're going to end with a book, Don't Let It Break You, Honey, a memoir about saving yourself. What can you tell?
Yeah, this is actually, full disclosure, this was written by a friend of mine, but that's not why I chose it. I think this is one of the most remarkable pieces of reporting, not just this year, but in a lot of recent years. Jenny Evans is the author, and she was raped quite a few years ago now by a famous man who she's not allowed to name. We're not allowed to name. And then that wasn't the end of it. She was caught up in the UK's phone hacking scandal, and her personal details were sold to the tabloid press. It got splashed across there. She was part of the big Levinson inquiry into that. And she actually became an investigative journalist because she wanted to understand how her details had been leaked by the police and what on earth was going on. And this is a real deep dive into a very, very murky underworld, which explores a lot of issues about British society, about phone hacking, about corruption, about the police. I really recommend everyone.
Yeah, a lot of stories we're leaving out here, but I want to thank all of you for coming in, Catherine, Francois, and Leela. That brings us to our quote of the week, and it comes from the recently deceased Tom Stoppard, the brilliant playwright who was a journalist before he found his calling. And he once said, quote, "I still believe that if your aim is to change the world, journalism is a more immediate, short-term weapon." That's it for this edition of Scoop. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next year.